Good morning, everyone. It's good to be back in Saskatoon. Although I was a little bit surprised about the coolness this morning, I was a little taken aback by that. Yes, my name is Ken. I'm originally from Saskatchewan, and I have spent several years working with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada in the past, so I won't dwell on that. But one thing that wasn't mentioned in the bio, I should just mention as well, is during the time that I did work with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to work within the newly established office in Regina, back when the administration, the federal administration, decided that it needed to have a presence in the province of Saskatchewan, given the large amount of participants in this province. I worked in the Regina office there for a couple of years prior to transferring back to Winnipeg on a permanent basis. Yes, so just before we get into the presentation, I just want to take a moment to express a thank you to APAS for organizing this event, and to Bill and Dion for providing us the opportunity here today to participate and present at this important symposium. We at MNP are well aware of the important role that APAS plays in supporting and representing the producers within Saskatchewan. We certainly consider ourselves partners with APAS due to a common client focus and the support that we both provide. So thank you to APAS for that invitation here today. I should probably start off a little bit, apologize if there's a little bit overlap in parts of the presentation. I should just say that it's just too bad Dr. Gray and I didn't get together. We could have avoided some of the overlap. So I'll cut some of my stuff a little shorter as some of it's already been mentioned. But so as everyone's aware, the current Sustainable Canadian Agriculture Partnership, better known as SCAP, is set to expire in March of 2028. So what that means is that our focus needs to be on enhancing the discussion to begin the transition and development of the new policy framework that will cover the next period of 2028 to 2033 as the next primary government mechanism for supporting Canadian agriculture. It is an important time and an important opportunity to be able to feed into the new policy agreement that will ultimately determine the program framework for the next 5 years. During this process, it will be important to remember that the greater the consensus that can be presented towards a national focus, the greater the impact that your recommendations will carry. So just a comment there. Over the past months, we at MNP have completed what is referred to as a SWOT analysis and review of the BRM programs. And SWOT is simply an acronym to describe the decision-making process that identifies the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats of a particular project or program. This analysis has been completed on a national perspective, and it is intended to serve as an awareness of the situations within the current program, and that can be used to help with both strategic planning and decision-making going forward. I would like to present these findings here today, but it is not my intent to tell you what your perception of the BRM programs should be. However, I do hope that we are able to create a greater awareness of the intent of the programs, along with a clearer understanding of the kind of potential risk mitigation and support that can be provided. From there, you will be able to make up your own minds. It is so important to establish that common understanding of the programs in order for these discussions to take place and begin with that fundamental consensus. So later, when it comes to making recommendations, it should make it much easier to find that base of common understanding and interests across all commodity groups, across other provinces, and then to unify around that common voice. Okay, so just before I bring up the first slide here, So basically what we'll do, I'll run through a few common slides, information slides, and then I'd want to get into the results from the SWOT analysis, and then eventually at the end I end up with the 5 recommendations that are being presented here today based on the analysis that has been completed. So what we have on the screen here is the 4 cornerstone pillars of the BRM programs under the current SCAP acronym framework. Each of these programs are designed and intended to provide a unique and specific mitigating support. Most of these programs have been around for several years with various changes and improvements being made over the past several years. In terms of agri-stability, the original concept of a margin-based program goes all the way back to 1998. As with Agri-Invest, the design of this program was put in place around 2007, and then the year prior to that, there was a Kickstart program, and then going back all the way to NISA, which fired up in 1992. Crop insurance in Saskatchewan has been around since the early 1960s, and therefore agri-recovery on the far right there would be one of the most recent additions to the BRM programs. These are the current tools that we have today and that are under review. Is it gone? Not working? Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm just going to throw up this timeline screen slide for a second. Again, I understand that there's going to be more details on these, the specific process and the actual dates being presented later this afternoon, so I won't spend a lot of time on this. But just to raise the first concern, or first make sure everyone's aware that the point we're at now and the up until the summer of 26 is what is referred to as the phase 1, where recommendations and suggestions are being accepted. Following that period in early July, ministers' meetings will take place on the 13th to the 17th, I believe. And following that, there will be a policy strategy released, a statement released. And because the meetings are taking place in Halifax, it'll be basically referred to as a Halifax statement. So there's it's an important period from now to that July period. And so that's the big emphasis that I'm trying to make here. After that, there is the negotiations and review of this policy statements will take place for several months and continue on into the summer of 2027 as well. So there's lots to be done. You think, well, 2028 is a long ways off, and it's like, why are we rushing this? But you have to realize all the recommendations, the negotiations that have to occur, and then after that, you still have to deal with you have to realize that all the administrations still have to work with retooling their systems and retraining their staff to take on any of the changes or the requirements that are being implemented. Okay. BRM programming principles. So this is referred to earlier. These principles are provided as guidelines for program designs, and they're provided by the Farm Income Protection Act guidelines to help protect farmers, or the programs that are designed for farmers. So in the first bullet there, the main point there is that we cannot, or we would not want to have any programs that would unduly influence the decisions of producers, in particular in areas of respect to their production or their marketing techniques. We would definitely not want to have that, where we'd have producers changing their best practices to suit a program design. That would not be a very good idea. The second bullet there refers to the level of protection to be provided should be fair and equitable and reasonably consistent with all other agreements, taking into account some various regional diversities. So that's another main component. The third one, the program should encourage the long-term social and economic sustainability of farm families and the communities that they live in. This is an interesting one in the fact that as the scale of farm operations gets larger and larger and the number of farmers continues to decline, this can be a tough principle to fulfill, but it's still a good bullet to have in there. The fourth one, the program should encourage long-term environmental and economic sustainability. So yes, this is a valid principle. We do need to make sure that farming operations are profitable. And I would also suggest that these farms remain profitable because they do apply long-term environmental practices every day. Practices like direct seeding or the 4 Rs of fertilizer. Producers have been doing these kind of practices for years. And so that kind of fulfills the fits in with the long-term environmental sustainability. And the last one is the program should be compatible with Canadian international obligations. So obviously, one of the main ones there referring to is the WTO commitments that the country has been committed to. Okay, so we're into the SWOT analysis. The first one that comes up is the strengths. And so we'll just walk through some of these. The first bullet refers to production assurance. It's a well-established, effective, and widely accepted program. Producers understand that program very well, and it has a high percentage of enrollment. It's a very popular program, and it's been around for a long time. Second bullet refers to agri-stability, a different program altogether, in the fact it's a very comprehensive program, but it provides inexpensive margin coverage for a multitude of perils. And we'll get into that a little deeper later on. Combined, these two programs provide excellent, cost-effective protection against severe losses. And they are quite popularly used in combination. When we talk to producers to see what they're doing for managing risk or the strategies they're applying in their operations, the two most common ones we're probably going to see are crop insurance and agri-stability. And they do make a good blend together. Agri-stability has the margin individualized results, and so does the production coverage. They're both based on individualized and reflect a farm's actual past performance. So that's a great feature. And it's important to remember that even though these features do add extra complexity to the program, I don't think we'd ever want to give up on the individual side of these two programs using that type of information. Provincial flexibility to customize production insurance. That's a bit of a neat feature. Each province has flexibility to target their regions in a little different way in the programs, the models of programs that they offer. They can target provincial cost sharing priorities and also provide provincial companion programs as well. The next bullet refers to ag recovery. When targeted as intended, it is effective in helping farms return to productivity more quickly after severe losses. And that was the real intent for why ag recovery was brought in. We saw it kick in, provide good support in the drought, the widespread drought of 2021, and then again, it was used in 2022. But the benefit of this program is it's a quick turnaround. A request comes from the affected area, whether it be at a province level or whatever. The feds consider it. They agree on that there is a need, and the program parameters kick in, and producers are compensated in those appropriate areas. Fiscally responsible BRM programs do not allow unprofitable farms to draw on support indefinitely. And so this is part of the design in agri-stability, where situations where producers' reference margins gets into showing multiple negative margins, eventually they will become ineligible for the program. And so there's no indefinite drawing on a program for farms that are not considered viable based on those parameters. So that's the strengths of the various BRMs. Talk about the weaknesses. Even though agri-stability has been around for many years, it still has one of the greatest weaknesses in the lack of the understanding of this program. And the result of that is then a lack of acceptance to enrolling in the program or using it. Agri-stability is not a simple program, and by design it involves multiple years, individual information, allowable, non-allowable items, and it is not easy to understand all the program rules. And so with any lack of understanding, there will tend to be a lack of acceptance as well. We continually need to do a better job of marketing this program and providing complete answers to producers' questions. So that's a little bit what I talked about earlier about providing a greater understanding of the program. And there's some other things that we need to do, and I'll get to that in the next couple slides here. Form preparers and even accountants sometimes create inconsistent messaging about the program. So this only furthers, turns producers away, creates confusion and less common understanding. There is also an underlying lack of confidence in the agri-stability administrations. Some of the frustration that's felt when producers are enrolled in the program, and the delays and the continuous questions that keep coming back. So there's some definite concerns there, weaknesses. Current service standards need to improve, as delays in payment calculations result in program responses being unpredictable. And so that goes against one of the intents of the program, which is intended to be a predictable, bankable program, and a lack of solid service standard does erode that. And it's a huge issue, service standards, and we find that many times when we speak to a producer and we get to the bottom of his discontent or dissatisfaction with the program, it's not a matter so much as being dissatisfied with the program design. It always tends to be on a more larger percentage. It's the dissatisfaction in the program delivery. So that is a huge distinction when we start talking in terms of reviewing a program and what potentially needs to be improved, or if there are any flaws in the program design. And so in this case, we're suggesting that on a larger extent, we're seeing the discontent is within the delivery, program delivery. So that's worth noting for sure. Coverage level. Coverage can be uneven between farms because of their cost structures. Highly mechanized or capital-intensified farms and even smaller farms that are reliant on family labor must suffer deeper revenue declines to trigger payments. And so what this means in those two examples is their cost structure includes a higher level or more ineligible expenses that makes them need to have a higher, deeper revenue loss or decline before they can trigger payments. So there is a bit of weakness in that coverage in those two examples. The $3 million cap is currently out of date, and it is a serious coverage limitation for larger operations. That cap has been in place for years, and we know the size of farms and the amount of dollars involved now is obviously moved from that original stage point. The national amending formula, as the way it's set up, can also inhibit agri-stability improvements. So there's a bit of a concern there. Multi-year droughts, back-to-back disasters, and climate change, these are all situations that most programs weren't intended to deal with. They're becoming more prevalent, and that's why we are seeing a greater amount of risk that producers are facing, and so that's a bit of an issue there with those year after year disasters. And then the last point there talks about AgriInvest. Was communicated as a savings plan, but has become too insignificant to be effective as a risk management or an investment tool at this point. And it's interesting to note that at one point, the government matching dollars were as high as $22,500 when the program originally started. And so we're a long ways from that with the $10,000 that it exists today. The BRM program opportunities. So we're getting on the potential improvements. So modernizing the delivery model of AgriStability to have a enhanced focus on client service. So that's a big deal. Administrations should be able to deal with that. Improved technology could facilitate earlier data reporting by farmers to result in earlier coverage calculations and ultimately quicker payments. And so some of the items you talk about technology, it's all over the place, but common ones I think of is weigh scales, grain carts, all those kind of tools that are out there now for better tracking of inventory. We see when we go out to do field checks, those tools really improve and speed up the year-end results. We have accurate data right up front with inventory. It moves the whole process that much quicker along, and so we're not doing back and forth with inventories in March or May and stuff like that long after it's out of the person's mind. Improvements to non-BRM programming to incentivize risk reduction and best practices in farm production, and as well administration and financial management. So any chance that they can in non-BRM programming to incentivize the concept of mitigating risk, that is something that we should see being provided as well in those non-BRM programs. Increase the $3 million cap, preferably scaled to farm size. It's interesting to note that even though the cap is, we have a cap on the potential benefits, there is no cap on the enrollment fees. So particularly on large operations, that enrollment fee keeps clicking up based on their support levels that are being insured, and yet they're locked in at a $3 million cap. So that's a bit of an imbalance. Opportunities to revisit allowable expenses to reduce disparity in agriculture coverages. Yes, this is something that's happening for 2026. So the idea of bringing in rent expense, pasture rent, as an allowable expense, that's happening in 2026. There are some other changes that are being made, but this is one example where we're looking at bringing in more allowable expenses to provide additional support. And particularly in this case, it's dealing with the cattle sector to provide some extra support in that particular region. Develop coverage enhanced based on risk for farms demonstrating low risk of payments. This could address pressure from diversified and high margin farms. So this is a little bit of compensation for those instances where we know that there may be low risk of payments in those particular operations. So a bit of a boost to their coverage to kind of level the playing field for them. Treatment of ad hoc programs, not to conflict with BRM. A lot of these ad hoc programs tend to only bring more dissatisfaction with BRM programs because BRM is where they usually end up being collected if there's overpayments. And last bullet, financial literacy and education. This is a huge piece, and And of course, it's related to some of the complexity in the program design, in particular agri-stability. And it's all about closing the loop on producers getting the information they need to better understand the program itself. So that is a huge opportunity there. We're talking about threats. Poor risk management planning leading to low program acceptance by farmers and excessive risk exposure to the sectors. So this is a potential result that carries on from that misunderstanding of the program or us not doing a good enough job explaining the program, especially in this day and age where we see increased risks, weather event issues, all these kind of events that seriously can impact these operations, and that's where risk mitigation even becomes more important than it did even years ago. Government's inability to collaborate nationally on improvements to agri-stability, service models, and program enhancements, along with some inconsistent applications of program rules. So currently we deal with 5 different administrations across the country. So there's where you can see it's the potential for some inconsistencies when you're talking that many different administrations delivering programs in the different regions. And it also even becomes more important when you got different administrations for the government, the federal government take a lead to coordinate that collaboration so that those enhancements or our program improvements are coordinated on an efficient and a clear way across all administrations. So that is a potential threat. Increasing climate, weather events leading to potential increases in the cost of the program, putting more pressure on governments to offload costs onto farmers. This is a bit of a real reality, and it's definitely a threat. Potential prolonged trade disruptions, as we've seen with the US in particular, leading to large multi-year losses. Political pressure to link BRM to environmental outcomes. This could compromise the fundamental process or purpose of BRM programs and lead to more unnecessary program complexity. So we're already seeing some of this in 2025 with the Agri-Invest and the requirement for risk assessments for certain producers applying for that program. Revenue insurance program, although this has been marketed as a lot simpler process, it appears or it would look as if there would be some sacrifice in coverage with that particular model. That's a bit of a threat. Environmental linkage to BRM programs simply just creates more discontent with the program as well. So we believe that it should be kept separate. BRM has its intent, and then environmental linkages can be in a different mode all of their own. This is one of my favorite slides. It's a, so we're doing for time here. Basically, it shows the available risk strategies that are out there. All of these, except for one, are available in the province of Saskatchewan. So all of them except the RMP, second from the right there, is an Ontario program. But what it basically does, it shows the varying strategies that can be applied or that are available in the program for mitigating risk. And down the left side, you have the potential coverage that we're looking at. And the color of the check marks in blue obviously mean that particular peril is covered. The X with your bright orange obviously means that particular peril is not covered in that particular strategy. So just at a quick look here, it's quite obvious to see the broad multi-peril coverage provided by agri-stability. And it provides that because it has the ability to cover production losses, revenue losses, increased costs, as well as some other additionals, hail insurance, heated grain in the bin, multi-peril, widespread coverage that's very, very economical as well. So the neat thing about this is that it gives options for producers. They can pick and choose, match, combination. I mentioned earlier, crop insurance and agri-stability are a big paired up options, but there's other ones that work good as well. And of course, it all determines on your price point that you want to pay for premiums to achieve that additional dollars in coverage. So, but the greatest thing is to have these kind of options. So as a manager or a producer, you can see how much of your risk you want to mitigate and how much you're willing to live with. And so that's why I really like that slide there. Okay, how are we doing for time? Okay, I'm just about ready to wrap up here then. I'll just get into the 5 recommendations that we've come back with. First recommendation states to maintain a margin-based core program. BRM must continue to include a margin-based program such as agri-stability to remain a foundational component of the suite. Margin protection is essential for stabilizing farm incomes during significant market or production shocks and provides a reliable safety net for producers facing volatility. And because it's one of the core programs, it's around for the long haul. So it's in place for 5 years as part of the policy framework. And so it provides producers with that stable, long-term support if they need it. It's no different than any other insurance program. You don't necessarily plan on seeing a benefit every year, but you need it there to protect the risk and the amount of investment that you've put in the ground. That's where you need to have your risk strategy in place. Number 2, modernize the program delivery and parameters. Program structure, eligibility thresholds, and administrative processes should be updated to reflect the current agricultural realities, including such things as increased cost structures, evolving production systems, and market complexity. Modernizing will improve accessibility and responsiveness and program effectiveness as well. So that's the number 2. Number 3, this one's a critical one as well, strengthen transparency and communication. Clear, consistent communication regarding program rules, the calculations and outcomes is critical to producer confidence. Transparent processes help ensure participants understand how the support is determined and reinforces trust in the program administration. So these are critical. It's closing that loop with the producer when they get their assessment back so that they fully understand the result that they've got, whether it's a payment or no payment. They can look back and see, yeah, I had a fairly decent year, or yeah, I knew there was trouble, and so now I've got some benefit to show for it. So that's the part about closing the loop, and it only helps to improve the understanding of the program and confidence in administrations as well. Number 4, ensure policy stability beyond short cycles. This is also, we're seeing examples of this. Program changes should need to remain in place for multi-year periods rather than being subject to short-term or one-year sunset provisions. Predictability supports long-term business planning, investment decisions, and risk management strategies at the farm level. And one of the prime examples of this we've seen in 2025 with the changes they brought in, where they increased the compensation rate to 90% and doubled the cap to $6 million. We were fully expecting that to continue into 2026. And so as we're talking to producers that were enrolling for 2025, you're explaining the potential benefits of the program with the anticipation that those improvements that were made in 25 would continue. And obviously that didn't happen. So that's a bit of a shortfall, and that's what we're referring to here in this recommendation. And the last one, expand financial literacy support. Accrual-based risk management programs require a strong understanding of financial reporting and analysis. Targeted financial literacy supports and tools and advisory resources are necessary to help producers fully understand and benefit from BRM participation. So I think we talked about this a fair bit before. So it's all part of that understanding the program, understanding the coverage that you're getting, and understanding the cost, how high you want to take that coverage to mitigate risk, how much risk you're willing to live with. And yeah, so I think I'll leave it at that. If there's any questions, like we said, I'll be around the rest of the day anyways. You can come and tap me on the shoulder or whatever. I will be around available to answer questions. I guess you want to keep moving here. Yeah. All right then. Thank you very much.